It was day 20, and Ray and I had camped the previous night on the edge of the San Isabel National Forest. Looking at the map, it appeared that camping options today would be limited because we'd passed through a lot of private land holdings. There weren't even many motel options. But we struck out for Trinidad, Colorado, figuring we'd determine how to best proceed once there.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 20 of the TransAmerica Trail. This morning, Ray and I are leaving a dispersed campsite with an incredible view on the edge of the San Isabel National Forest. Just a few moments ago, we departed the National Forest and are now coming to private lands. Last night, we had an incredible view right after sunset of Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars. Just paraded right across the sky that you see in front of you right now.
That was it on that side.
A bit further, you can look over here to the right.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking right now. You can see some of it.
There we go. What a better view over here.
Arriving in the town of La Vita, and we'll be gassing up and finding a place to eat some breakfast.
Spotted a big old giant buck. That guy was telling me that town's full of them, and he said they also have a big bear problem as well.
Oh, really? Well, we just crossed Interstate 25 and are headed to the north briefly before we loop around and head back to the south. I don't think there's anything past Trinidad. That's what's concerning me about continuing past Trinidad today, even though it's really early.
What I can do is search for around near my destination and see what hunting gives me.
Yeah, we'll stop in Trinidad and do a little planning.
There you go.
Just a short ways out of the town of Trinidad, Colorado. We're going to reassess what we'll be doing for the rest of the day.
It was a good, if abbreviated, drive to Trinidad. Once there, following a bit of questioning of local residents, we decided it would be best to find a motel, then head out for the Oklahoma Panhandle first thing in the morning.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 21 of the TransAmerica Trail. This morning, Ray and I are headed from Trinidad, Colorado, with our goal of reaching Boise City in Oklahoma. And in case you're unaware, it is spelled Boise, but it's pronounced Boise. Boise City, Oklahoma. Just hit paved road. Out to the left there, Brad, to get a chance to look at it. Arriving in the town of Branson, Colorado.
Yeah, I can see it. Looks like we made a good decision.
Yeah, spending the night in Trinidad, I think that was the right idea. That hawk right there, red tail.
Well, Ray, we finally got you where you belong, huh?
Exactly.
They caught up with you.
Exactly. My
Third-
past has caught up with me.
The third person in history to ever spend time in the Branson City Jail.
Now, I just saw the cowboys. They were rustling these cattle. Yeah, there's one riding a horseback out amongst them right now. See him riding around out there in the middle of them? Well, I know it doesn't look like it, but welcome to New Mexico, Ray.
Roger that. Boy, so much dust here I can hardly see.
Motorcycles. Apparently there's two more behind them.
Boy, we do have some goofy looking stuff coming up.
Okay, this is a little steep. I think I'm going to shift the four-wheel drive lug, just stay off the brakes. Pretty good descent here. Turned on to an old friend, the Dry Cimarron Scenic Byway. Okay, that's a pretty good hairpin turn. Along on Pacheco Road, headed eastward in the general direction of Boise City, Oklahoma.
Yeah, mine don't like this move, but I don't have the purple line.
This is the purple line.
Gotcha.
Hey, where's our food? You're fooling us.
Just here to take pictures.
To Oklahoma, right? This is where my route ends, so I'm going to have to stop here and do a little work with the Nexus 7.
It was necessary for me to import a new route file for Oklahoma, as well as to change the map database to the state. After that brief stop, as we were headed to Boise City, we stumbled upon a sign for the Great Plains Bunkhouse, focused especially on tat riders. Ray called the listed phone, and we were offered a night at the bunkhouse. And though they normally wouldn't prepare food for guests, the owners were kind enough to do so for Ray and me, a much appreciated special service. The next morning, after a spectacular Great Plains sunrise, Ray and I would head off for the last segment of this memorable journey. We're getting ready to eat, and Lashane has cooked this wonderful meal. It's not a normal service of the bunkhouse, but she felt sorry for us, I think, and says, "Sure, I'll cook you guys a steak," which is absolutely wonderful.
Good morning, everyone. Ray and I are departing the Great Plains Bunkhouse, headed for home.
We don't want to pass over anything because we don't want to catch any of this grass on fire.
This is bad, Ray. Got kind of nasty right in this part of the tab.
It would take Ray and me almost 5 weeks to complete 22 days of travel on the TransAmerica Trail, including travel to position ourselves for the adventure and a mid-trip break back in Oklahoma. We'd drive over 8,000 miles, covering about 85% of the western Tat during that time. And what an adventure it had been. The vistas we'd see, the people we'd meet, the challenges we'd face, all combined to make this the trip of a lifetime, or half a trip. For Ray and I are even today discussing finishing up the eastern half of the Tat. Stay tuned for further adventures in the not-too-distant future.
back to my Oklahoma home. How about that song? I like that song. Sure you recognize that from several places, as well as the teaser throughout these videos. Anyway, this was obviously the last video until Ray and I managed to do the next section, the eastern half of the TAT, which we were hoping to do in maybe the next few months. We'll have to see. But regardless, there was one other subject I wanted to talk to you about in these post-video videos, if you will, and that is about tools and recovery gear. So how about we take a look at what I do for tools and recovery gear?
Well, first and foremost in the tools and recovery gear is, what kind of overlander could you possibly be if you weren't carrying a high lift jack? So I carry one. And as I mentioned in a previous video, it would probably be the first thing I gave up if I had to give up one thing. But I do carry it, and I've used it a little bit here and there. And I'll talk in a couple minutes about an accessory that makes it handy for a lot of off-road vehicles. Next thing I carry is an axe and a shovel. The axe, well, if I've got to chop up some kind of tree or something else, I've got better ways to do that, and I'll discuss that here in a few moments. The shovel does come in handy, and I will say you want a D-ring handle on the shovel, a short shovel, and not a folding shovel. A folding shovel is fine if you can go out and bury your poop waste. That's handy to take. You can put the blade at a right angle, and it's real handy for digging a quick hole. But if you've got yourself mired down in mud or snow, you need a real shovel. So carry a real shovel. I mentioned I carry Max Trax, and I would have 4, except I went to buy 2 more, and I have to buy 4 more. And because I don't have to buy 4 more, but they redesigned them slightly, and they don't stack neatly. So I'd have to buy 4 in order to stack them like this. And so, cheapskate that I am, I have not bought those 4 yet. But they do come in handy. You can stack them like you see them right there to make it a little bit tougher thing, say to get a tire over maybe a little bit of a ditch, a muddy ditch or something you're afraid you might get stuck in. I've also seen people, by the way, use a spare tire. Just throw a spare tire in the hole and drive right over the spare tire. And then go back, pick up your now very dirty spare tire and stick it in the vehicle. I carry a floor jack, a 2.5-ton floor jack. And you know, I have a lot of people laugh at me until they borrow it. Because the high lift just isn't that safe. The floor jack's quite a bit safer. I hope you noticed in the video when Ray was working on his brake caliper that although we don't carry any jack stands, we took his spare tire and put it under the vehicle frame such that had this jack fail, which was the only thing that was actually holding his Jeep up, the spare tire would have caught the Jeep before it hit the ground and squished Ray. Yeah, always think about that. Even when you're working at home, if you've got a tire off the vehicle and you're working under that wheel, just stick the spare tire up there under the frame where it could catch the vehicle before it falls on the ground. I actually had a friend of mine, a fellow from church, who had his car up on jack stands on the back, and he didn't have 4 jack stands, so he had it on his floor jack, and it collapsed on him, and he died. So, yeah, take it seriously. The next thing I carry is a pull pal, and if you're not familiar with it, I'll show you a couple more pictures here, but just briefly, this is under the back seat, and this is a long strut that holds the pull pal, and then it has a blade. You don't see the blade here, but it is stacked next to the storage drawer that we'll get to here in a few minutes, and you won't see a picture of it because I've got it kind of hidden back there in a narrow slot, but it's stored out of the way. Mainly because it's very sharp, and in the event of an accident, if it went flying through the vehicle, it could literally take somebody's head off. But this is what the pull pal looks like when it's put together. You can see the blade there at the bottom of the photo, and then that's unfolded now, that strut part, and then a winch connects up to it. These are also known as land anchors. I recommend pull pal brand because of reviews I've read from Overland Journal and other reputable sources. They basically say this is the best one. There are other manufacturers of less expensive products, but this is the best one. And so you hook this up to your winch. In this case, I didn't expect that hole to be quite so deep. I was by myself, so I didn't have anybody to pull me out. I was just at a little local lake about 3 miles from my house here. I was going down there to shoot photographs of the birds by the lake, and I didn't anticipate that this mud would be so deep. As a matter of fact, if you'll notice in these pictures, I had washed my Jeep the day before. It was spick and span clean until I manage to get myself mired in this mess. Anyway, after winching yourself with it, it will sink into the ground, and then it will anchor into the ground, and then you will continue to pull yourself up. Once you get free enough to where you can drive out, you drive out. And if you do like I did, you're careful not to run up too far and damage your winch line. Getting it out, by the way, you take and you pull it back up, and in this case, I had to use that shovel in order to do a little bit of digging in order to get it free from the ground. It had sunk in about 1.5 feet into the ground. Carry some chalks. If you don't have chalks, you might have rocks, you might have logs. We did have the chalks available. We didn't use them. There were a couple of handy logs there when Ray had that problem with his Jeep, and so we just grabbed the logs and stuck them up there. Just make sure the Jeep's not going to roll. Okay, now we get to the drawer. And on top of the drawer, I have a big Ziploc bag that's got a siphon hose in it. And we'll get to that here in a minute. But let me go ahead and show you another picture with the siphon hose pulled out of the way. And what I want you to notice here is you'll see 2 tool bags there. Actually, a tool bag on the left of the drawer and then a tool roll that's on the right of the drawer. That tool roll, I call that my 90% solution. 90% of the problems I have with my Jeep can be solved with a tool in there. And so it's got a hammer, it's got a screwdriver, it's got a couple of very common wrenches. It's probably going to have whatever I need, a pair of pliers. And you have to figure that out for yourself. But I'll show you some pictures here of what I do carry in those. The other tool, that is a big tool bag, and it is the depth of that drawer. And I carry everything in there that I could possibly need for tools. And I figure if I've got to get into that bag, I've got a serious maintenance problem, and so that bag is probably coming out of that drawer and go out by where I'm at. You can see the tool roll-up kit there, and I've got some screwdrivers and various wrenches. People ask me, you carry metric or SAE? And my answer is yes. The Jeep is built with metric, but the vast majority of aftermarket parts you get are going to be SAE. So I carry both. And there's another reason I carry both. I'm not one of these fanatics for eliminating every tool that doesn't work on my Jeep. So I carry sets of things. I try and be sensible about that. I don't have both a 1/4 inch drive and a 3/8 inch drive with the same size socket, for example. I use a couple of adapters. But I do that because I figure if I'm out there on the trail and somebody has a problem, I need to have the tools to help them, and they may not be driving the same year, model, whatever vehicle that I've got. I carry some gloves. Actually, I have several pair of gloves. That's a pair of heavy-duty canvas gloves, and I keep gloves in the inside the Jeep also. I didn't pull them out, but believe it or not, I keep 3 pair of gloves in the glove box. Imagine that, gloves in the glove box. Eye protection, I think that's necessary. You get into your Jeep and it's muddy, dirty, whatever, you have something to put over your eyes to keep something from getting in them, because you don't want to add a medical emergency to a vehicle malfunction. I carry some plastic bags, and these are the real heavy contractor bags. If you don't carry a tarp, I do. If you don't carry a tarp, you can throw one of these on the ground, keep yourself from getting dirty. I carry a volt-ohm milliamp meter, VOM meter, and I carry a Hypertech programmer that I use to program my Jeep. That's only needed in the event I'm off somewhere and I need to take it in to have it repaired, and they say, we're going to reflash your TIPM or something like that. I want to make sure I can remove the program so that after they're done reflashing it, I can put the program back in and I don't have to run into problems with that. And that little Craftsman bag you see right below it is what I carry those things in, just to protect them. The big tool bag, this is partially what's in the big tool bag, a lot of sockets. That power wrench that you see there, that long handled thing left of center, is very useful for pulling lug nuts. Over on the lower right, notice that there's a vise there. That goes into 2-inch receiver hitch and can be useful for anything where you need to have it seriously held, such as maybe working on a U-joint or something like that. I carry a few spares, some tape, and WD-40, stuff like that. I think you'll see that again in another picture I have. Notice also in this picture, the top left corner, you see 2 axle nut sockets up there. The reason is because the Jeep JKs are made with 35 or 36 millimeter axle nuts. It varies depending whatever they happen to have on the manufacturing floor, I guess. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine says that he has a Jeep that he worked on. It had 35 millimeter on one side and a 36 millimeter on the other side. So you can't be sure unless you actually get out there and test it. I just carry one each. I also carry a lot of combination wrenches and offset box end wrenches, so I can pretty much handle any bolt size that I would run into on the Jeep. The next thing I carry is a siphon hose. I don't take and hold my jerry cans up and pour that fuel into the Jeep. I just turn them around so I can get at the cap on it, and then I use this siphon hose here. The siphon hose comes from AEV. I don't know that you'll be able to get one. Ray actually called up AEV, wanted to buy one of these after seeing it, and they were like, we only include these with the AEV fuel caddy kit. But Ray managed to talk him out of 2 of them. And so I don't know that you'd have any greater luck, or maybe they've changed it. It was years ago he actually did that. Ray can be kind of persuasive when he wants to be. Some of the other gear in that drawer, you'll notice, now some of these pictures I took at 2 different times, so there'll be some duplication of stuff here. I'm just going to go ahead and start at the top. There's a tree saver up there. You should carry a tree saver and use a tree saver. And then right below that, to the starting on the left, that funny looking thing that looks kind of like an upside down V, yellow and black, that hooks up to the high lift jack. And those hooks on there can hook up to my bumper. So there's not really a good place on the bumper design I have. It has a sloped bottom on it, and the high lift jack would just slide right off it if you tried using it without this. But with this, the high lift jack hugs onto the bumper a lot better, and it's safe to try and lift up, at least as safe as you can make a high lift jack. Next thing I have is a tow strap. Tow strap, that's going to be your #1 recovery tool, so keep a good tow strap. And then next to that I have a couple of shackles. One of them is one of these new rope shackles, and it only weighs a couple of ounces. And I haven't actually used that yet, but it's nice and light, so it's kind of cool. And then dropping down a little bit further, right directly below them, I have a snatch block. You probably saw that when we removed that large tree during one of our trips up to the Abajo Mountains. Immediately below that is a chain. And let me tell you something about chains. You don't use them as tow straps. You carry a chain so that you've got a part of the vehicle that you're trying to recover, and it doesn't have decent recovery locations. So you're going to wrap it around something in the vehicle that's strong. Maybe up underneath the vehicle. You don't want to do that with a strap because the strap can get cut. You want to do that with the chain. And then you use a shackle and you attach that to your tow strap. You don't want to use a chain because a chain has a lot of mass, and in the event that you had something come apart or break, you don't want to have that mass flying through the air hitting somebody. You don't want the tow strap hitting them either, but at least there's less mass to deal with. And then to the left of that, of course, is a set of battery cables. I recommend you get decent battery cables. There was a guy with a big diesel pickup truck. While Ray and I were trying to fix his brake caliper at Pine, he was having trouble starting his big diesel pickup truck. I said, yeah. I said, I can jumper you. So I pulled my Jeep over there, and he had a set of battery cables. It was just this little tiniest wire, and I was like, okay, we'll give that a try, since he had his out and mine were still in the back of the Jeep. And it wouldn't start. So I said, let me get some better battery cables. So we got my battery cables out, and it started right up. So yeah, you need to be able to carry enough current through the cables, so make sure you got large enough cables. That green molly pack that's to the right there, beneath the chain, that is a tire repair kit. It is a really good tire repair kit. The quality of the tools in it is just outstanding. It's not inexpensive, but it has everything you could possibly want to repair a blown tire, or it even has a needle and thread if you've got tubes in your tire, and but you've got a big slash in the tire. Okay, we're talking about serious overlanding now, aren't we? You replace the tube, but you've got this big gash in the side of your tire, and when you go to air up the tube, it's bulging out of this big gash. Well, you can take the needle and thread in there and sew that up. Below that's a funnel. I actually carry another funnel too. It may have been in one of the other pictures, and that's just so I can put fluids in the Jeep without making a mess. And then back over to the left is a folding handsaw, and you have seen me use that before if you've been watching my videos. It does come in handy. I've debated when I get into forested areas, maybe carrying an electric chainsaw. On this last trip, Ray and I talked about it, and he had a electric reciprocating saw, and he went ahead and carried that, a battery-operated reciprocating saw. We didn't need to use it. We thought we were going to until we started looking along that one area in Oregon, and then that bear came along, and there were probably, we didn't count them, but there were probably a couple of hundred trees that had to be cleared out of the road, so we were obviously not going to do that. Below that is the vise again, just a different angle on it. And then back over in the lower right corner is a wood block, and I use that when I can't get enough lift out of the floor jack, depending where I'm trying to jack up at. Next thing, just a few kind of spares and consumable parts I use. These are just old things that I replaced on the Jeep, and so I just saved one. I saved the longest spark plug wire. I saved the wiper blade refill. I saved the serpentine belt. I've got a few extra stretchy straps.
I've got some duct tape. This is extraordinarily strong duct tape. I could tape a tarp over a piece of glass on the windshield and drive at interstate speeds, and it would stay there. I've got some more of those plastic bags. I've got another one of those little Craftsman handy bags. It's got some fuses in it, some safety wire, some electrical wire, just different little odds and ends, some splices, mechanical type of splices. Back over in the lower left corner is what I call F4 tape. That's from my days in the Air Force working on F4s. It's a stretchy silicone tape, and I highly recommend it. I've seen it for sale a lot of places now, but you can go to f4tape.com and buy yourself a roll. It's not inexpensive, but it is really, really good tape. Once you use it, you'll get addicted to it, I guarantee you. Nothing else is like it. Next to that is some more electrical wire. In this case, it's a larger gauge. That's an 8-gauge wire there. Next to that is a repair kit for the Schrader valves on your tires. In case one of them should fail, I can use that to do a repair on it. And next to that are the tire deflators. Obviously, for recovery, I've got a winch. It is a Warm power plant. It is their 9500, I believe is what they call it, dual force HP. They've got two. One is 9,500 pounds. The other is 12,500. You may think, oh, bigger is better. Well, the only thing I'll say about bigger is better, in order to have 12,500, you have to have bigger line. Bigger line means shorter line. So you don't really need it unless you've got a vehicle that's kind of weight. The general rule of thumb is 1.5 times the weight of the vehicle. This power plant, one of the neat things about it is it includes an air compressor. So I can put it into air compressor mode, and I actually use that more than I use the winch. I use that to air up my tires. It's reasonably quick to air up the tires. Something else is I have some tire chains. They're hard to find for bigger sized tires, and it took me quite a bit to find some that would fit my tires. These are cable chains. They're not the best chains. I don't have really good clearance, and most Jeeps don't, especially when you start sticking oversized tires on them. Even with lifts and everything else, you turn the wheels, and all of a sudden you've got a tire chain that's tearing up sheet metal underneath. The cable chains are much closer, but they're not as effective as the real chain ones. I'll tell you what they can also be good for, and you may think it's funny, but when you get in those high wind situations, a couple of these are pretty heavy. You can set them inside your tent to help stabilize your tent in the event of high wind situations, and so that's rocks you're not having to haul inside the tent. And so that about does it for the tools. If you have got any questions, suggestions, ideas, please feel free to ask at the discussion group. Bye-bye now.